Let me tell you some of the things to watch when this race starts. Watch Michael Schumacher, fourth on the grid behind the all McLaren front row. He's on the left-hand side. Remember all the criticism there's been, and in my opinion, some of it is justified and some of it isn't, about his tactics recently. Watch Jacques Villeneuve, the lightning starter in the BAR. He's in the 7th grid position, behind his teammate Riccardo Zonta, who's starting higher than he's ever started before. Watch poor Luciano Berti. My goodness, that chap's having everything happen to him, and now he's starting from the pit lane in the Jaguar after he had qualified down in 21st position. He's got a hydraulic leak, which I hope they've fixed. Jenson Button and Ralf Schumacher in the 2 Williams are starting right back on rows 9 and 10 in this 11-row grid. So the question is, what is going to happen at the start? Because if Mika Häkkinen can get away well from pole position and is not interfered with by the unfortunate David Coulthard who hit him last year, it could be a very, very tough race for Michael Schumacher, especially as he's got Rubens Barrichello in front of him.
Well, there's more to the front of the grid than may at first meet the eye. Of course, the 2 McLaren drivers appear to be very similar in pace. They appear also to have the fastest cars on the racetrack. Very, very closely followed by Barrichello in the Ferrari. He's clearly faster than Michael Schumacher. So what will Ferrari do with Barrichello? Because they'll want to clear him out of Michael Schumacher's way. Schumacher doesn't have the pace, and therefore Ferrari will have to try something interesting to beat McLaren, because they can't beat them in a straight fight today in terms of their raw pace. Over and above that, the 2 McLaren drivers both need to win the race. So if they've got to play team tactics against Ferrari, they've also got to play selfish World Championship tactics for their own ends to try to close that gap on Michael Schumacher. So it's a fascinating struggle we're going to see at the front.
Yeah, and the interesting thing could well be a very long stint for a one-stop Michael Schumacher. I don't know that it's one stop, but I do know that after he'd done his exploratory lap, he came in, they put the Ferrari in the garage, and they filled it up with the last possible drop of petrol that they can get into it. And while they were in there, they made an adjustment to the front wing. So he's gone out, he's assessed the conditions. The conditions are extremely good at the moment, actually. The track temperature is about 19 degrees.
I think that just demonstrates that Michael has struggled to get his car working. He's even amazingly admitted that he's just not hooked up this weekend. But if you adjust a car when you're going to the grid, it never quite seems to pay off, because you don't attack those out laps, those formation laps, in anything like the same way. And you tend to get the wrong information coming back through the steering wheel. But nonetheless, Michael's still trying to fine-tune his car, and we're all very aware of just how hard he can push on every corner of every lap of a Grand Prix. So never count Michael Schumacher out. I would imagine Barrichello could well be on a lighter fuel load to try and get in there and spoil the race of those 2 McLarens and keep Michael Schumacher in the picture.
Well, whatever happens today, Michael Schumacher, even if he scores no points, and David Coulthard scores 10 points by winning the race, and it would be his 4th win this year if he did, Michael Schumacher is still going to be leading the World Championship when this race finishes, because at the present moment he's 12 points ahead of David Coulthard, and he is 18 points ahead of the man you're looking at, the rejuvenated, it would seem, Mika Häkkinen, who's been away on holiday. And surprisingly to me, he says they've readjusted the car. He's a double world champion. What can they find to do now?
Well, they've certainly been struggling to get that car working as Mika would like. I think they're having to protect their rear tyres as they all hurtle off down to turn 1 for this green light lap. This lap incidentally counts as 1 lap of the Grand Prix. And I think to protect their rear tyres, they're having to make these cars understeer a little bit more. And I suspect that that does not suit Mika Häkkinen as well as it does some drivers. And also, obviously, as I've said before, you're either giving pressure or you're taking pressure. There's no middle line on this. And Coulthard has managed for 4 races, and that's Berti going out of the garage. He had to get in the spare car. He had a hydraulic failure on the car that was on the grid. He was so calm and collected, wasn't he, when I was talking to him down there? And since then, they've established a hydraulic leak. So Berti will start plumb last.
Well, we've just been riding with Alexander Wurz, the Austrian in the Benetton, 14th on the grid. The car you saw in front of him was Nick Heidfeldt's Prost, and you've also heard that there are very strong rumours that the Prost team has been sold, allegedly to a Canadian consortium or an extremely rich individual, but I emphasise that that is not official. We'll just have to wait and see.
I think it's a fairly solid rumour though, Murray. I think that one's pretty much happening.
So the weaving Mika Häkkinen on Bridgestone tyres, like all of them, they're all on the soft compound except for Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who seems to be starting down in 15th position, partly as a result of that yesterday. The two Williams drivers, Ralf Schumacher and Button, are both on the medium, which is the harder of the two compounds, and the two Arrows drivers, Pedro de la Rosa and Jos Verstappen, both of whom went extremely well in the warm-up this morning, are also on the medium compound. And I don't think it's going to make a heck of a lot of difference unless the weather conditions change very dramatically indeed. So it is a 71-lap race. Mika Häkkinen slots into position. David Coulthard pulls across to the right-hand side of the grid. The rest of them take up their positions. And of course, Häkkinen and Coulthard at the front of the grid hope that the people behind them won't be too long getting into position so that their clutches are not affected.
Now, the right-hand side of the grid here, Murray, their right, is very much off the racing line, and I expect it to be quite dirty.
So look on the left-hand side of the grid, Michael Schumacher, and watch the lights. Now, are you ready? Then we will begin. David Coulthard rolling slightly and gets right up alongside Mika Häkkinen. It's a right-hand turn, the first one. David Coulthard could get through. No, he doesn't. Mika Häkkinen chops across the front of David Coulthard, and that's a Ferrari spinning. That's Barrichello gone through, and I think that's Michael Schumacher. It is Michael Schumacher, Jarno Trulli and Ralf Schumacher, and Michael fingering the clutch levers under the steering wheel, and consternation in the Ferrari garage.
They may well have to red flag this. They can cover it under the safety car. The medical car there that starts at the back of every Grand Prix. Yes, the safety car is out there, not red flagging it. It's the silver Mercedes estate we saw. It's the medical car. World Championship leader Michael Schumacher somehow has kept the engine going in that, and we've got wave yellows all the way around the circuit. A little SC board. Now Michael's stalled there. That's Michael pulling his car back onto the racing line. I wouldn't be at all surprised. He is going to be destroyed when he sees the safety car procedure. He will want a red flag procedure so he can have a restart.
And Giancarlo Fisichella was down there as well, out of the Benetton, but now it's Häkkinen leading, Coulthard second. Salo in the Sauber is in third position, and he started 9th on the grid. What is happening? I don't know. That's Fisichella running back, and Schumacher's car is being craned off the track, as is the Benetton. So that is 2 retirements, including the man who is leading the World Championship and will still be doing at the end of this race. But it's the worst possible situation for Michael Schumacher out of the race with 2 McLarens in the lead, following the safety car. Mika Salo third, Pedro de la Rosa and Jos Verstappen are 4th and 5th in the 2 Arrows, and somehow or other Johnny Herbert has got up to 6th position, and he started 16th. Martin, here you go.
Jenson Button is 7th, so in amongst all that carnage, the 2 McLarens got away beautifully. Look, Michael Schumacher comes up the inside and gets a tap from what must be the BAR of Villeneuve, and Schumacher pushed out of the first corner. Zonta, we think, actually ran into him.
I think it was Zonta, yeah.
Yes, and then, of course, you got a traffic jam. Michael Schumacher kept his engine going, pulled it back on to the racetrack and switched it off again. That's how it looked to me anyway, but he could not get them to bring the red flags out. They've deployed the safety car, and look, Michael Schumacher somehow, after a very poor start, gets up the inside of Barrichello, but it's going to be Zonta that tags him at the rear and puts him into a spin look. Zonta going too deep into the corner, Barrichello taking to the gravel, as did several others.
Yeah.
And that's why people at the tail end of the field made such huge gains on that first lap.
And one of the people who suffered was Jacques Villeneuve, who was 7th on the grid. He's down to 15th position because you can see he's having to finagle his way round the side of the stationary Ferrari.
Safety car is in this lap, so the safety car, here we can see another angle, and yes indeed, it is Zonta that does not brake early enough and gives Michael Schumacher quite a firm shove. And at that point, Barrichello's hovering around the outside, wondering whether there'll be any space for him, and he has to go onto the grass, and then it's pandemonium behind them.
Well, it's always silly to make predictions, and certainly at this stage of the race, but it looks as though it has handed it on a plate to McLaren, with Häkkinen leading, Coulthard in 2nd place, Mika Salo, whose car performance, of course, doesn't hold a candle to the McLarens in front of him. But the interesting thing is that Johnny Herbert is coming up through the field now. He is in 5th position in the Jaguar. There he is. Going through is Barrichello, who's taken 2 places on this lap. Barrichello is the man to watch in the Ferrari. It's all down to him, but he's got to get past Jenson Button, he's got to get past Johnny Herbert, he's got to get past De La Rosa and Mika Salo. And I think he'll be able to do it as Jenson Button there in the Williams, which is handling much better now in the race than it did yesterday in qualifying, is right behind the Ferrari of Rubens Barrichello.
Yes, I saw Verstappen had to come in at the end of the first lap. He was up in 4th place, amazingly, after the chaos of the first lap. He must have tagged somebody and come into the pits for a new nose or something. He's now back out on the racetrack, and there are 3 cars out of this race already. Michael Schumacher, Jarno Trulli and Giancarlo Fisichella all out of the race.
And Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the other Jordan is 8th. Now let me give you the top 10 so that you can put things into context.
Hold on, Murray, let's just see this move from De La Rosa on Salo. Can he take 3rd place? He's got a good line up the inside, and yes indeed he does. De La Rosa up to 3rd.
And Barrichello right up behind Johnny Herbert. Look for the Scarlet Ferrari behind the green Jaguar. Here it is coming towards us. Häkkinen is leading, Coulthard is 2nd, Salo in the Sauber is 3rd, De La Rosa is now past Salo, and Herbert is 5th with Barrichello crowding him. 7th is Heinz-Harald Frentzen, 8th is Jenson Button, 9th incredibly is Marc Genet ahead of Alexander Wurz. And look at the 2 McLarens, they're already clearing off from Pedro De La Rosa, the Spaniard, who is proving that the Arrows is a rejuvenated car, as a very unhappy Michael Schumacher stalks back to the Ferrari garage. Well, now, this is going to be a McLaren demonstration at the front, no doubt about that. We're on lap 4 now, out of 71. Now, the question is, what is the situation going to be between Mika Häkkinen, who is leading the race and wants to make it 3 World Championships in succession, and David Coulthard, who's won 3 races this year and was starting to look as though he was getting right on top of Mika Häkkinen. We know there's no team orders between the 2 of them. We also know that the most criminal thing you can do in Formula 1 is to take off your teammate, which David Coulthard did here at this circuit. At the corner they're approaching now, turn 2 last year. So Mika Häkkinen leads. David Coulthard is the fastest man on the track. He's just put up the fastest lap we've had so far, and he's closing up on Mika Häkkinen. What's your guess?
Well, clearly they're going to be on similar fuel loads. If McLaren have decided the quickest way to run this race is at a certain strategy, then surely both drivers will be on something similar. I wonder what they may have done to cover any potential Ferrari move. And this is Barrichello taking Herbert for what will now be 5th place. So Barrichello coming through the field. I believe that Ferrari could be slightly lighter than the 2 McLarens, but he's got a major job to do now. He's going to be so far out of touch by the time he can get anywhere near some clear air. And here he is now coming up behind Salo. Something is smoking quite a lot.
It's Frentzen's Jordan, and off he goes. Maybe something's happened to the engine. I saw smoke coming out of the back of the Jordan before. That's the Mugen Honda engine spinning the wheels. He's in the gravel. He's beached it. The under tray is down in the gravel. He's not going to get out of that. That is another retirement from the Austrian Grand Prix, and it is the 4th in 6 laps.
I suspect he spun off in his own oil or fluid of some sort, because something was smoking. And look, he's turned in completely normal. Yes, there's a trail of smoke, and bang, it goes on your own rear tyres. And Frentzen just buried the throttle pedal to try and drive out of the gravel, but ended up just digging himself the beginnings of a sandcastle. And look, he's reacted extremely early. Nothing he could do about it. That is not Heinz Howard's fault.
No, he had a terrific season last year because he won in France and he won in Italy. He's having a pretty awful season this year because he's down in 9th position with only 5 points. That is Eddie Jordan.
And I wonder what could be on the track there. Fortunately for most of the drivers, they're going to get some waved yellows when they come along there. I suspect the track could be quite slippery in there. If there was enough fluid down for Frentzen to spin off on it himself, then the track's going to be quite slippery, but they appear to be getting through no problem.
Well, look at the way De La Rosa is going. All right, he's 4 seconds behind the flying McLarens, but De La Rosa now is nearly 3 seconds ahead of Mika Salo's Sauber. And Salo, remember, drove a Ferrari here last year, and it's a Ferrari that's catching him. Rubens Barrichello in 5th position. There he goes. There is Johnny Herbert. Behind Johnny Herbert is Jenson Button. So the Englishman has had an absolutely fantastic drive.
I would imagine the Ferrari-engined Sauber of Salo will be expected to move quite quickly out of Barrichello's way and release him up into that 4th place. We'll have to watch that one. De La Rosa surely is not running the same fuel load as the 2 McLarens and others. Now, do you know who the fastest man on the track is at the moment? It is Holland's Jos Verstappen in the 2nd Arrows. On lap 6, he's just put up the fastest lap, 1 minute 14.3, compared with last year, 1 minute 12.1 by Mika Häkkinen. But of course, it's early days. They're on heavy fuel loads. You're looking now at Mika Salo's Sauber, and what an improvement there is in that car. We're used to Sauber normally doing well in the first half of the season and then starting to go a lot slower in the second half because they haven't developed the car enough. Not this year. Salo was in terrific form yesterday. He was up in 6th place in qualifying at one point. But now Rubens Barrichello is gaining, but we leave him to look at Pedro De La Rosa, 3rd position. That was
Verstappen, sorry.
Yeah, that was Verstappen who was quick at the back end of the field. And here we go, Salo trying to defend easily, actually, because Barrichello's not that close, but Barrichello will have to come up the inside here, and Salo will have to yield as he does. And as I expected, he did not make a big deal out of letting the Ferrari past.
Well, Barrichello is now 10 seconds behind the McLarens. McLarens are lapping in about 1 minute 14, 1 minute 14.2, and Barrichello's been lapping nearly 1.5 seconds slower than them at the present moment. So he's got to put on a terrific charge to close the gap, never mind get past them, as we look at him again on this replay, taking 3rd position from Mika Salo from Finland.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure that's a move that Barrichello made in the knowledge that he wasn't going to get turned in on. So I guess it's not that surprising, but Barrichello easily through into 4th place. Now he sets about the challenge of catching De La Rosa, who's currently holding 3rd, and the 2 McLarens, there's absolutely nothing between them up at the front.
So Barrichello goes in that 3rd. He's lost another 2 seconds on the 2 McLarens. He's 12 seconds behind them. But here is Herbert. Behind Herbert, 7th position is Button. Ahead of, I can hardly believe my eyes, Marc Genet, the Spaniard in the very, very tidy Minardi, which has got a powerful engine. Into the pits comes Ralf Schumacher.
With a broken nose by the looks of it, hasn't he? A broken front wing, so Ralph's tripped over somebody, or that may be damage from the first corner that with the aerodynamic load has taken a little bit of time to actually materialise.
And Lex, you and I, as we look at Nick Heidfeld being pursued by Jacques Villeneuve and Ricardo Zonta, see what's going to happen down there. So Alesi is in 10th position, Heidfeld is in 11th position. Villeneuve behind him, of course, is 12th and Zonta 13th. They both suffered as a result of that coming together on the very first lap. And 6 positions down now is Jacques Villeneuve compared with his starting position, 5 positions down to be exact. And Luciano Berti, I'm just looking to see where he is. He's in 14th position. Now, the retirements we have so far are Fisichella Trulli and Michael Schumacher, the World Championship leader. No points for him here in Austria. And Ron Dennis is studying implacably and very calmly, as he always does, his cars at the front, the two McLarens, and they're in a race of their own now, because David Coulthard, 1.5 seconds approximately behind Mika Häkkinen, is 6 seconds ahead of the pursuing Pedro de la Rosa in the Arrows. But if Arrows can keep this up, it's going to be one of their best performances ever. There's a long, long way to go. Arrows have yet to win a Grand Prix, and they haven't been on the podium for a very, very, very long time.
I thought I saw traces of smoke coming out of the back of that McLaren. I really
Which one?
did.
Which one?
The first one, Häkkinen's car. It was coming through the last two corners as he got back on the throttle. I just thought I saw tiny, tiny hazes of blue smoke.
Well,
so we'll keep an eye on that.
It's quite possible, because they have had engine problems, and Mika Häkkinen's engine was changed, actually, before the race. So that's by no means impossible.
Keep an eye on that, but it seems fine enough at the moment.
Lap 11 out of 71. Ralf Schumacher has joined the retirees. He came in to have the nose cone replaced after being involved in that collision on the first lap. So he's another retirement to make 5 in all. But noticeably and significantly, we think, and I emphasise the word think, that we saw a puff of smoke coming from the lead McLaren's engine. That's Mika Häkkinen's car. It hasn't stopped him from just making the fastest lap of the race. He's still 1.5 seconds ahead of David Coulthard, who is some 8 seconds now ahead of Pedro de la Rosa. There he is alone on the circuit, but Rubens Barrichello is eating up the gap to the Arrows.
Yes, but Barrichello, now he has got in clear air, is still 1.5 seconds a lap slower than the McLarens at the front. That absolutely amazes me. Well, it's so much slower with no traffic in front of him whatsoever, as you watch Jean Alesi trying to challenge Alexander Wurz for 9th place.
Let's try an absolutely wild one on you, because it amazes me that they're so much quicker. Might they be on a 2-stop strategy and Barrichello only on a 1-stop strategy, in which case he'd have a heavier fuel load? Seems unlikely, but it's possible. I'd
be surprised, but we'll have to wait to find out, won't we? But Barrichello certainly doesn't appear to have great pace. But even, Murray, the difference between 1 and 2 stops is not 1.5 seconds a lap, as Alesi ducks up the inside and can't hold the back end of the car, and Wurz immediately takes back his 9th position.
Well, we're on lap 12 now out of 71. Eddie Irvine won last year in the Ferrari as a result of a brilliant stint. He stayed out until lap 44 in the 71-lap race, and he came out of the pits still in the lead after his stop. So now we're on lap 12, Häkkinen leading Coulthard, and the gap is increasing slightly. Häkkinen is putting in a series of absolutely blistering laps. Anybody that thought that Mika Häkkinen had lost his touch, was over the hill, and lost motivation, was very clearly very wrong.
Well, Häkkinen was blistering around this track last year. He didn't win it, of course, because he had that tag with Coulthard on the first lap, but watching him come back through the field, he was sensational. And certainly there's 2 or 3 corners around this racetrack where nobody can touch Mika Häkkinen, so he's certainly got the pace that he needs. We're back on board with Barrichello coming up towards turn 3 as he's coming down from 180 down to just 70 miles an hour, and still he's 1.5 seconds per lap slower than Mika Häkkinen. And
even more interesting, I think, Martin, is that he's only a few hundredths of a second quicker than the car we're looking at now, Pedro de la Rosa, the Spaniard in the Arrows. On the last lap, it was 1 minute 14.69 and 1 minute 14.61. So there's only 8 100ths of a second improvement of Barrichello on de la Rosa, and it's going to take him a long time to catch the Arrows at this rate. But then, there again, de la Rosa might be on a 2-stop strategy.
Well, Schumacher there staying in the car. Clearly, he's had a knock in that first corner. We saw the front wing broken when we came back from the break. and now surely he's got some kind of suspension failure. I noticed on the computer that car number 23, that's Zonta, is under investigation by the stewards, and that will surely be for running into the back of Michael Schumacher in the first corner. James, what can you tell us?
Yeah, I think Zonta may be facing a stop-and-go penalty in the not-too-distant future, but I'm down at McLaren, where there really is no sign of any anxiety about the engine of Mika Häkkinen. Looking down to Ferrari, it looks to me as though Rubens was on quite a heavy fuel load, and I think Ferrari's plan today was to damage limitation really for Michael Schumacher, try and get him up to P3 and then move on from this weekend and forget all about it. But instead, Michael has an awful lot potentially of damage. McLaren, I think, are going to run quite long here, as far as lap 40, possibly lap 44, and Rubens will probably do the same thing. De La Rosa, quick word on him. Remember Canada, where he did 2 stops. He looked very good in the early part of the race, but then he faded later on. I think you'll see the same thing today.
Yes, and interestingly, you could well be right on Barrichello, James. I'll come back to you on something else in a moment.
So Mika Häkkinen now increasing the pace all the time. He's inching away from David Coulthard. The gap is 2.3 seconds. But behind Barrichello, who's in 4th place, Mika Salo is 5th. Johnny Herbert is still 6th in the Jaguar, and they've only scored World Championship points in 1 race this year, and that was Eddie Irvine. Button is still in 7th position, just outside the points. He scored twice this year. 8th is Marc Genet. 9th is Alexander Wurz ahead of Jean Alesi. We've seen the battle they're having. Then it's Heidfeld, Villeneuve and Zonta, and they're coming towards us, up the track towards turn 2 now. There is Heidfeld turning in. Behind him is Villeneuve, and coasting is Jos Verstappen. Jos Verstappen coming into the pits from 17th position with his visor up. Now, the car language and the body language says this is the end of his race. Yes, he turns across the pit lane. Here is the reason. He turns out of the the bottom corner, runs very, very wide indeed, over the grass, onto the gravel.
I think looking at how that accident developed, or incident developed, he'd already got a problem before he turned into that corner. So Verstappen there, I would imagine, with some kind of front suspension failure or problem. Something I was going to say earlier on before I got distracted is that I'd like, at some point when we see a replay of the start, Barrichello got away so much better than Michael, and then seemed to have to get out of it and let Michael through up into the first corner. Michael's miles behind him off the line, and I think that could confirm what James was saying about Barrichello actually, yes, being on the fuller fuel load and trying to release Michael. It didn't pay off because Zonta arrived much too hot.
Well, Alex Wurz waves a furious fist at Jean Alesi, who's just moved up into 9th position. There he is, diving through on the inside of the Benetton, who runs wide again and lets Alesi get away. Alesi is an absolutely storming driver. He's driven in more Grand Prix than anybody else who is currently racing. I think this is his 177th Grand Prix, and he's lost none of his brio, none of his enthusiasm, none of his fire. That's Pat Simmons, the technical chief of Benetton, on the left, with Gordon Message, and the highest man that they've got in the field at the present moment is Alex Wurz, who is in 9th position, because Fisichella, of course, has long gone out of the race.
So we've got 2 cars have been notified they're on a stop-go penalty. It's Dinitz and Zonta. So Zonta, we're sure it's because he ran into Michael Schumacher. Here it comes up on the screen. Dinitz, I don't know, maybe he had a jump start or something like that. So, but look at this, Murray. Mika Häkkinen is now down in the mid 1 minute 12s, and Barrichello still buried in the 1 minute 14s.
Yeah, fastest lap last year was Mika Häkkinen, 1 minute 12.1, so he's half a second off that at the present moment. At this 17th lap out of 71, so it's McLaren's all clear and a long way, 17 seconds now ahead of the 3rd place De La Rosa at the front of the field. But there is a battle going on behind, and into the pits again, out of the pits, I'm sorry, rejoining the race goes Ralf Schumacher. Now he's several laps down now, and Villeneuve, the man who is holding up all sorts of movements in Formula One for next year, whilst he makes his mind up about whether he's going to drive for BAR, whether he's going to drive for Benetton, or what he's going to do, continues to unsuccessfully chase Nick Heidfeld, the Formula 3000 champion of 1999. Heidfeld in the Prost, and Alain Prost is very much here under a terrific amount of pressure as a result of these rumours that he's sold his team. And Heidfeld is in 11th position at the moment.
That's Denitzin for his stop-go, so he has to go to his own box, and Zontarin's ahead of him too, look. They have to go to their own area, and their own mechanics have to release them after 10 seconds of being completely stationary. Plus the time they lose getting in and out of the pits, so 25 to 30 seconds is an absolute minimum, is the cost of this strangely named 10-second.
Yeah, I feel quite sorry for Zonta, actually, because he drove his heart out to get up to 6th position on the grid, which is the highest he's ever been. His position in the BAR team is debatable next year, and he undoubtedly got overexcited at the start and probably caused Michael Schumacher to retire from the Austrian Grand Prix. Now, there's a lot of people been saying that, of course, the best thing that could possibly happen here today is for the McLarens to finish first and second, as they did in France, because that would close the championship right up. Because at the present moment, the McLaren team is on a potential 16 World Championship points in the Constructors' contest, which would put them ahead of Ferrari, even if Rubens Barrichello finished in 3rd position, and he's in 4th place at the present moment.
Ironically for Häkkinen, those 2 stop-and-go penalties of the other drivers played beautifully into his hands, because they exited the pits right between himself and Coulthard in 2nd place. His lead is now 4.3 seconds. And here's the restart, and look at the white car just nerfing the Ferrari into a spin, and they're already busy having an accident of their own behind anyway. And at that point, truly just runs into Schumacher. Probably looked easy for us, but I would imagine there was a cloud of tyre rubber when he arrived and just nerfed into Schumacher as a secondary incident. And Michael Schumacher saying, nothing I could do, boss. Nothing I could do.
I was sitting there, and I got this colossal bang in the back, and who was it? It was that bloke Zonta. I'm going to have a word with him after the race. Cost me 10 World Championship points. It might have cost me the World Championship. I'll only be 2 points ahead at the end of this race if David Coulthard does well. And at the present moment, on lap 20 out of 71, Mika Häkkinen is striding away now from David Coulthard. 5.6 seconds is the gap. De La Rosa is 23 seconds behind the leader, still there magnificently in the arrows. Rubens Barrichello is only catching De La Rosa very slowly indeed in the Ferrari. He's 4th. Mika Salo in the Sauber is 5th. Johnny Herbert is in 6th place. So that's an unusual front. Well, it's time, I think, for me to come out with my hideous cliche that anything can happen in Formula One, and it normally does. And I expected something unusual to happen at the start, but I certainly didn't expect Michael Schumacher to be punted out of the running by Ricardo Zonta. I didn't expect Fisichella to be taken as well, and I didn't certainly expect to see an Arrows in 3rd position.
Is that your most hideous cliche, Mario? You must have a better one than that.
I got lots of them.
But yeah, it's certainly been a strange race. It's sort of dream ticket, isn't it, from McLaren so far, but still over 50 laps of this Grand Prix to go. So, as you say, anything can happen, and it often does, but it's just absolutely dream ticket. They're 25 seconds ahead of a car in 3rd place, De La Rosa, that almost certainly has less fuel on board. And they're effectively got a pit stop in their pocket already, just 20 laps into this Grand Prix.
Yeah, and if they finish 1st and 2nd, and all right, we've still got 50 laps to go, but if they finish 1st and 2nd, it would be the 4th time this year that they had done so, in a situation where after the San Marino Grand Prix, the 3rd race of the year, people were saying Ferrari have got it stitched up. Hello? P1, lap 21, that's Häkkinen, shift revs. What's that mean?
Shift a bit earlier, don't rev quite so high. That's a pretty standard procedure when you've got a race all wrapped up and your competition is over a second a lap behind. So they're just reminding him, hey, listen, buddy, just take it a little bit easy.
Take it a little bit easy, but not short shifting in the conventional sense of the phrase.
Yes, that's short shifting, basically, Murray. Just, you know, instead of going to 17,200 or whatever they run to, change gear at 16.8 or 16.7 makes a lot of difference.
David Coulthard surges inside Ricardo Zonta's BAR to lap the Brazilian, and of course Mika Häkkinen has already done so.
Yes, as I said, those two cars that finished their stop-go penalties fed in front of Coulthard but behind Häkkinen, and it's cost Coulthard over 4 seconds trying to get through them. So Häkkinen now with a 7.2 second lead as he comes over the line. It's going to be even more this time around. 8.5 seconds as he negotiated the BAR of Zonta. So Häkkinen now really getting off into the distance. Not because he was better through the traffic, because he didn't have to put up with that traffic. Della Rosa now 26 seconds behind Mika Häkkinen. Louise, what can you tell us?
Well, I'll get it from the horse's mouth. I'm here with Michael Schumacher. Michael punted out at the race at the first corner through no fault of your own. Has to be your worst possible nightmare.
Oh yeah, I mean that's one of the parts which makes you disappointed, no doubt. But you know, that's racing. It sometimes can happen. I don't think Ricardo is the person who does anything like that purposely. He just overestimated his abilities, and the corner speed has happened to me in the past. I mean, I have done a mistake, and I guess he will admit he did one. So I will have a quiet word with him next time, and we'll see.
Do you feel that the race should have been red flagged?
I mean, from my position, yes, definitely.
But realistically speaking, there was no reason for it.
I mean, the marshals did a very good job, unfortunately, to clear the circuit. So obviously you have the safety car, and it's the same for everyone. They use the safety car under normal circumstance like this. It's the same for everyone. It hurts, obviously, if you feel a race could be stopped and you could jump in the other car and you have a second go. But, well, that's the way it goes.
Bad luck. Thanks for talking to us.
You know, about half of Britain can't stand Michael Schumacher. The other half either loves him or is ambivalent about him. I must say, I think he's an absolutely super bloke, and I admired him there for his phlegmatic attitude, his cheerful attitude, to the fact that he's now in a situation potentially where he could only just be leading the World Championship. But I suppose when you've driven as many Grand Prix as he has, and this was his 136th, which he started, and you've been on the podium for well over half of those races, you just learn to take it that way.
Yes, he was, I have to say, remarkably calm about it, though, and I think it was a good PR front there from Michael, and I think he was very correct in what he was saying. And I do remember him running to a lot of people on the first lap in the past, but it must be incredibly frustrating for him, but incredibly sportsmanlike all at the same time. But, you know, get back to the pits, jump, scream, shout, thump somebody, all you like. It won't put your race car back on the track.
Absolutely. Now, remember what James was saying about De La Rosa when I was hypothesising that he's on a two-stop strategy. De La Rosa has actually increased his lead over Rubens Barrichello, who, as I say it, takes some of it back. You're looking at the only Ferrari in the race at the present moment, with Brazil's Rubens Barrichello, who is in 4th place in the World Championship at the present moment, but has yet to win a race, either for Jordan or for Stewart or for Ferrari, which is his 3rd team. And he is inching up on De La Rosa, but if De La Rosa is on a two-stop strategy and Barrichello's on a one-stop strategy, he will go up to 3rd place pretty soon.
Yes, when Michael looks at the computer screen, which I'd imagine would be the first thing he did when he got back to the pits, he'll be pleased to see that Häkkinen is stopping Coulthard at the moment, getting maximum points. Coulthard, of course, 6 points nearer to Michael in the championship, but he'll be very saddened to see that Barrichello is only literally inching up on De La Rosa in 3rd place, some 36 seconds behind the leader now, is 4th place man Barrichello. Michael will be amazed to see how slow he is, and the fact that Barrichello cannot get up there and spoil McLaren's day. It's now all down to making sure there's no driver errors and no mechanical failures. I've seen out of the window a pit board that says revs and shift, and they're telling the two McLaren drivers shift a little bit earlier, use a few less revs, and hopefully just even if you just knock 300-400 revs off the top end, it saves the engine enormously. The stresses are just increased dramatically as they get over 17,000 RPM, for example. James, what can you tell us?
Well, it's interesting. I've just been looking at those pit boards being prepared. I see shifts and revs, and I wonder if in the minds of Häkkinen and Coulthard that also means don't race each other, guys. What do you think, Martin?
Well, I think that Coulthard will be trying as hard as he can to race, but Häkkinen certainly punished him while Coulthard was making his way through that traffic. Häkkinen put on, despite getting a board saying slow down a bit, some astonishing laps, and you're seeing one for yourself now, a 1:11.8. That is amazingly fast, and some 1.2 seconds faster than Coulthard. This is a virtuoso performance we're seeing here from Mika Häkkinen, and he's scampering down there. He doesn't want Coulthard to have to make a decision whether to race him or not. He wants to get far enough into the distance.
Yeah, and he's 0.3 of a second faster than his own fastest lap last year. Zonta's having a pretty lurid race. You just saw him nerfing Mazzacane, who is battling with him on the track. Zonta is down in 15th position. There are 16 cars left out of the 22 that started. Fisichella out at the beginning with Trulli and Michael Schumacher. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, presumably as a result of his engine locking up, which spun him off the circuit. Jos Verstappen we've seen come into the pits and into the garage. Ralf Schumacher's been into the pits for a long time. He's 8 laps behind now. The leaders are on lap 27 out of 71. Here is Mika Häkkinen, and you can see the gap as behind him there is Luciano Berti, who is now in 12th position. He's been lapped, of course, but he's running well in the Jaguar. And Johnny Herbert, his teammate, the team leader today, with Eddie Irvine still, in, as far as I know, in hospital. And if you are Eddie, and if you are watching, get well soon. And Johnny Herbert is still in 6th position. Here is the battle between Mazzacane in the yellow Minardi and Ralf Schumacher closing up on him in the Williams BMW.
The only problem Schumacher's got is he's 7 laps down, Murray, because if you remember, he came into the pits for a new wing, and then he came in for what I'd imagine being new wishbone on the left front, so of suspension. So Ralf was really out there having a test day, really, trying the car and checking out for if they can stress anything and find some reliability issues, because he certainly isn't going to score any points today.
Well, the question in my mind now is, when is De La Rosa going to come in? If he is on a 2-stop strategy, he's in 3rd position at the moment. He's on lap 27. He's on lap 28 now, and he's well past the hypothetical 1st stop, which would be round about lap 23. If he's on a 2-stop strategy, he will have to come in pretty soon. Barrichello is now rapidly closing the gap to the arrows in front of him. Barrichello in the Ferrari in 3rd position. There is Mika Häkkinen slicing his way through the field. He's coming up towards us now, and just in front of him on the track is Jacques Villeneuve in 11th position on the BAR. And that is Mika Häkkinen's next target, because he's already lapped Mazzacane, Zonta, Pedro Diniz, Alesi, Luciano Berti. He's coming up to there is Jacques Villeneuve, the world champion of 1997, 11th position, BAR. Thundering up behind him in the McLaren to lap him is Mika Häkkinen.
James is down in McLaren.
Yes, where Mika Häkkinen isn't taking the message. He's about to get a pit board now that says easy. We've seen it once or twice in the past, and Mika Häkkinen is so desperate to prove himself. He was so enormously relieved when he stuck it on pole yesterday. He said to me, it's so good to smile again. It's been such a tough time for me. And he's out there giving a demonstration of how fast he is, but the McLaren team don't like it. They want him to back off, Martin.
It doesn't surprise me at all. That'll be the 2nd time of asking. Clearly they asked both their drivers. Coulthard slowed down. Häkkinen now pulling out a 14-second lead, 14.4 now. And I noticed really Coulthard started to put the hammer down again. He's having to get right back into the 12s. Otherwise, Häkkinen's just disappearing into the distance. And now Häkkinen somewhere amongst the back markers. It's a 72-second lap, and Häkkinen is now 42 seconds ahead already of Barrichello in 4th place, so he's going to lap that Ferrari this afternoon.
Yeah, and 14 seconds ahead of David Coulthard as he comes up through the tail enders. You've just seen him go past Villeneuve after the blue flags were waved at the Canadian. Now he's closing up on Nick Heidfeldt's blue Prost, which is in 10th position. Just look at the way that Mika Häkkinen is going. He's just diving past left, right and centre. The next target is Alexander Wurz in front of him in the Benetton with the Supertech engine. And Mika Häkkinen comes through, round turn 8, the last turn on this corner, crosses the line, and he's up behind. There is Wurz in the Benetton, the only one left in the race. And he's coming up to turn 2 now. It's climbing all the way up here, and he's doing about 180 miles an hour before he backs off to about 45, 50 miles an hour for the apex. There's Wurz, there is Häkkinen.
There's been such a lot of garbage written about Häkkinen this week, about he's got a baby on the way, therefore he's lost it. That's as, you know, as if his mother, father, brothers, sisters, wife, and other people around him didn't care. It didn't matter at all. It's only the fact there's a baby on the way. Complete load of rubbish. You know the risks, you drive accordingly. You've also got yourself to think about. There's no way that having a baby makes you just suddenly go off the boil in terms of being a Grand Prix driver. But everybody seems to need to analyse these drivers. They ask them questions and they're given answers, and if they're not the answers they want to hear from the drivers, they then start dissecting that driver's personality.
Yes.
Complete load of rubbish.
Well, he's short shifting now if he's obeyed instructions, and there's some doubt about that. But he is lapping about 0.6 of a second slower than his own fastest lap so far in this race, which was done on lap 27, and that was 1 minute 11.8. He's lapping in about 1 minute 12.6 now. He's on lap 32 of 71, so getting on towards half distance. Up to turn 2 they come. Jaguar, Williams. The Jaguar is Johnny Herbert. The Williams is Jenson Button. And there is Mika Häkkinen now. He has passed Wurz. I'm just checking on whether he's... No, Genet is the next one. I've been talking a little about this Minardi because Marc Genet is in a magnificent 8th position, the Spaniard. There's 2 Spaniards in Formula 1 now. Pedro de la Rosa is the other one. And that car, that yellow Minardi, if it had a lighter engine, the Ford engine that it's got is pretty powerful. It's not far off most of the others, but it's very heavy. And Gustav Brunner, the Austrian engineer who has worked for so many Formula 1 people, has produced a great motor car. And Marc Genet's making the most of it. He's hanging on to Jenson Button. There it was, Rubens Barrichello. And that was that dust coming back from behind the arrows?
I fear it's a little bit more than dust. Certainly De La Rosa's gone a lot further into this race than I thought he would in terms of fuel, so maybe eating my words on that one. But yes, it's beginning to breathe rather heavily, isn't it? That is not going to make the end of the race, Murray.
No, it's a super... So, oh, no, my goodness, it isn't. No, it's so... Whoa, that's it. Bang, bang, bang. Out goes De La Rosa. That's a replay. So Rubens Barrichello will be moving up into 3rd position with the disappearance of the arrows after a superb drive.
I don't think
but he's still running.
Yeah, he's not disappeared just yet. That was a replay of it smoking earlier on. Now he's coming in for, let me look out of the window, it's a routine stop. They're expecting him. So he may have to, he's certainly not going to be able to get to the end of the race without stopping again, I would have thought, from here. But De La Rosa in, but surely that engine is not going to see the checkered flag. 6 laps into the window, and it looks to me as though he's going to turn in. Very leisurely stop. No tyres, you see. Looking at the back of the car. No, this is the end of De La Rosa's effective race, whether he rejoins or not. So Barrichello goes up into 4th position. 3rd position. Mika Salo goes up into 4th. Johnny Herbert is 5th. Jenson Button, for the 4th time in his career, is in the points. He's finished in the points twice, and he's in the points again. And Marc Genet is in 7th place, and now Mika Häkkinen has lapped everybody up to 7th position. Oh, and as I say it, he passes Jenson Button. Well, you're right, Martin. If Häkkinen goes on the way he's going now, he's going to lap everybody before the end of this race, except his teammate David Coulthard. Yeah, it's a brilliant performance from Häkkinen. He's certainly not backing off at all. It's quite a good scrap going on here. You've got Salo rather, 9/10 behind him is Herbert, and now just a little bit more is Jenson Button. He was 1.2, but he had to yield to the McLaren of Häkkinen that was lapping him. But a good little scrap there for what will now become 4th, 5th and 6th. That's Salo, Herbert and Button.
Well, the highest that a Jaguar has finished in a Grand Prix was Eddie Irvine's 4th place at Monaco. Johnny Herbert is in 5th position, and Louise has got information about De La Rosa of Arrows.
Yeah, that's right, Murray. A lot of sad faces down here at Arrows, as you can imagine. De La Rosa was on a one-stop strategy, so he was keeping up with those cars on pure pace. Nothing to do with the fuel stop strategy, but unfortunately his gearbox has let him down. Exactly the same reason as his teammate Verstappen went out.
As we watch Mika Häkkinen closing up on Johnny Herbert and surging past the Jaguar, which is in 5th position still. So there's just Salo, Barrichello and Coulthard ahead of Mika Häkkinen for him to lap. And Salo is lapping in about 1 minute 14.5. Mika Häkkinen is lapping 1.5 seconds faster than the Sauber.
Herbert was smart there. Clearly he's got to let the McLaren pass. The flags were already waving at him, blue flags, but he chose to do it in a place where they both lost the minimum amount of time, especially himself. So Johnny, the old hand, able to release Häkkinen without giving away too much in his pursuit of Mika Salo. But a little, as you can see, but now Salo has got the same problem, but he can let Häkkinen get through as they break up into turn 1. Salo will then just blend out the throttle a little bit down this straight and let Häkkinen have the inside line. That way Salo stays on the racing line and gets good drive out of the corner because his tyres are clean, and that keeps his gap back to Herbert.
Yeah, he needed to do that to prevent Johnny Herbert closing up on him. And I was saying, I'm keeping my fingers crossed for Jaguar because they've had so many hard times this season, as we see a replay of Häkkinen going past the Ferrari engine. So it's a Petronas engine officially, but it's a Ferrari engine in fact of Mika Salo Sauber. And you're watching a really brilliant race, brilliant drive by Mika Häkkinen, who certainly lost none of his form. But I was talking about Jaguar. They've had so much hard luck, with 3 retirements for Eddie Irvine, with 4 retirements from the first 9 races for Johnny Herbert, only 1 points finish. And people don't realise, they say it was the Stewart team last year and Johnny Herbert won for Stewart at the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. Why can't Jaguar take it on from there? Well, it's virtually a completely new team in terms of personnel at the top, and the infrastructure is largely changed as well. And it's a very, very difficult thing as we ride with Rubens Barrichello. Now he is closing a little, but only at about 0.2 of a second a lap on David Coulthard, who is second, and he is 32 seconds behind Coulthard, and he is 47 seconds behind Häkkinen.
Yes, that's the first time in 35 laps that Barrichello's been faster than either of the 2 McLarens. As it happens, he was faster than both of them. But remember, they are going through the traffic. They're going through the back markers. So Häkkinen leads by 15.4 seconds from Coulthard. Barrichello 46.9 seconds behind Häkkinen. Salo, Herbert and Button in close formation to round out the top 6.
Now, here is something very interesting, Martin. We've been coming back from time to time looking at Nick Heidfeld in the Prost, who's now in 8th position. And try as he may, Jacques Villeneuve in the Honda engined BAR, which is a much improved car thanks to aerodynamics, can't get past him, and he's the 1997 world champion.
Yes, his car's not quite fast enough. I think it is a little bit faster, but his car's not fast enough to make the difference, to put the pass on. But clearly that is Zonta chasing Diniz in this particular example. Villeneuve is further up the road chasing Nick Heidfeld. So Villeneuve really, or Zonta, not showing anything like the kind of pace we saw through free practice and indeed qualifying.
Well, this is proving, if proof was needed, that McLaren this race, P1, lap 37, come in, that is come in. Mika Häkkinen, your time is up for this first stint anyway, and the second stint is going to take him through to the rest of the race, and he's coming in about 17 or 18 seconds ahead of David Coulthard, who will therefore take the lead unless something very strange happens indeed in terms of a rapid pit stop for Mika Häkkinen. David Coulthard will take the lead, but of course he would then lose it again when he has to come in for his pit stop, which will be very soon, I predict, after Mika Häkkinen, because I assume they are on an identical strategy. So Häkkinen turns in. it stops. Up goes the front of the car, on go 4 new Bridgestone tyres on their wheels, and Mika Häkkinen, the fuel nozzle is a bit slow getting away, but it's 11.8 seconds. And where is David? There is David Coulthard. And Rubens Barrichello is now on a charge. He's doing the fastest lap of the race as I talk to you. He's still to come through and complete it. He's done a lightning first section this lap. It's split up into 3 sectors for timing purposes. The first sector ends just before turn 2. He's gone through the second sector faster than he has been before. But the gap between him and Mika Häkkinen is still some 30 seconds. Coming down now, it's 20 seconds as a result of Häkkinen's stop, and Barrichello has yet to stop himself.
Yes, Barrichello's done his fastest lap of the race rather than the fastest of a 1:12.5, but that's just normal sort of cruising around McLaren pace at the moment when they were trying to just save the engine a little bit. So now Coulthard, if he's got a few extra laps of fuel in his car, it probably explains why he wasn't able to stay with Häkkinen earlier on. The traffic certainly hasn't fallen well, and he hasn't taken it as well as Häkkinen, but Häkkinen quite clearly, in any event, has more speed around this racetrack. But Coulthard leads the race, and he's got low fuel. He must be doing for fuel in the next few laps, and he should be able to pull some of that deficit back that he had on Mika Häkkinen.
So the order on lap 41 with 30 laps to go in this 71-lap race. David Coulthard leading Mika Häkkinen now by 10 seconds. Rubens Barrichello is 30 seconds behind Coulthard, but has yet to stop. Mika Salo in the Sauber is 4th. Johnny Herbert still going strong in the Jaguar. 5th position, 2 potential points. Jenson Button in the Williams, who started down in 18th position, is now up into 6th position and in the points again. Marc Genet is 7th, Villeneuve is 8th. He's got ahead of Heidfeld, who has come in for his pit stop down to 9th. Wurz is 10th, and Bertie in the second Jaguar is still running in 11th place.
Yes, and if you didn't see the start of this Grand Prix, there was an accident in the first corner that immediately eliminated Michael Schumacher, Jarno Trulli and Giancarlo Fisichella. Others had problems, had to stop for wings and little bits of suspension, notably Ralf Schumacher. So then allowed the tail enders really to find their way through, thread their way through the carnage in the middle of the pack. And now look, Coulthard has to come in for his one and only stop of the afternoon. And that's why you have Herbert, Button and Genet, for example, in 7th place right up the field, because they were able to leapfrog. And instead of a red flag scenario, I think wisely they just chose to use the safety car, because the marshals cleared the racetrack with great efficiency.
Yeah, they did a great job. Charlie Whiting is the race director. He's the man who has to make these ticklish decisions, and he invariably gets it right. An enormously experienced chap, ex-chief mechanic at Brabham, and he's had various other jobs. And now Mika Häkkinen is going round with David Coulthard coming in. Now Häkkinen took 11.8 seconds on his stop. David Coulthard is now 11.6 seconds ahead of Häkkinen in the race on lap 42. Häkkinen will retake the lead, and it will run through that way to the end of the race unless, and it's a big unless, there is a problem for one of the 2 McLarens. And Rubens Barrichello is still 3rd. In comes Coulthard.
Yes, current leader then, Coulthard in for his stop of the afternoon, James.
A very mellow atmosphere down here in this McLaren garage. They can't believe their luck, frankly, guys. They are absolutely cruising this race. The only question mark is, what did David Coulthard believe he was about? Did he think he was going to have a chance to race Mika Häkkinen? But he's taking on about 68 kilos of fuel now. Should be stationed for about 10 seconds. Very smooth, very nice, very McLaren.
Well, he gained 2 seconds on Mika Häkkinen on the pit stop there, but it's not going to be enough. He's coming out at the mandatory 80 kilometres an hour.
One thing he has got to do is just mind this nasty little right-hander onto the track. No problem at all. That's caught a few drivers out over the years coming around there, but he's up and running. But once again... And
they're two Ligiers.
Yeah.
Sorry, the two Prosts. There's the pressure of the occasion. That's a Lacey and Heidfeld. I don't know what's happened, but it's the... I mean, poor Alain Prost, as if he hadn't got enough pressure on him. In this vital race, his two drivers appear to have come together, and we saw in the last race Alain Prost nearly throwing a fit in the pit lane as the gantry camera caught him. Here it is.
That's too late. Whoever was coming in second there, which is Jean Alesi, was coming in too late. That one has got to be firmly on Alesi's shoulders, and he's still trying to drive away with one wheel hanging off.
With De La Rosa now is Louise Goodman.
That's right, Murray. The McLaren's running in first and second, completed their pit stops, but the man who was running third unfortunately stood here with me in the paddock. Pedro, can you get any consolation from the fact that the car was running so strongly before you went out?
No, it's not enough. Just not finishing another race. It's not good. Especially, I would have loved to finish on a good position for the team. And especially because everyone was thinking that we were on a two-stop strategy and we were on a one, like all the others. And it was a shame, really, because we had some transmission problems. But anyway, this is motor racing, and the unfortunate thing is that it happened when we were going so well, and I was pushing very, very hard because the first pit stop was very close, and we knew some people were going to stop a little bit later. But anyway, we'll have to forget it, go to sleep, and tomorrow will be another day.
Thanks, Pedro.
Another very resigned and phlegmatic De La Rosa. That's his 8th retirement from 10 races. But very interesting that they were on a one-stop strategy. Bodes well for Arrows.
It certainly does. I certainly owe him an apology because the car had such speed. And Tom Walkinshaw even told me this morning they were on one stop, but I still didn't believe him because they had such amazing speed in the warm-up this morning. I thought, like Canada, they were running the car a little bit light, but all credit to them, they had some genuine speed around this circuit.
Now, that was Rubens Barrichello as we look at his boss, Ross Brawn, and we now look at the McLaren turning inside the Minardi. Rubens Barrichello is only a couple of seconds now behind David Coulthard as a result of Coulthard's stop. And Barrichello on lap 45 has yet to come in, so it's a bit of a false picture. Barrichello is with the second place McLaren of David Coulthard on the track, but effectively he's still way back in third position. Johnny Herbert up to 4th place.
Yes, because Salo pitted from what was 4th place. And Herbert and Button have yet to stop, and I think this also explains why, I mean, Barrichello going so far into the race, he was very heavy off the line, but also again explain why Michael was able to have such a poor start yet still be ahead of Barrichello into that first corner. You're on board now of the Ferrari as you head up towards turn 2. A car in front of us, clearly the car, in fact no, that's a Coulthard, second place man Coulthard, who has already made his stop, of course. And Barrichello surely has to pit anytime soon. But if the Ferrari can go this far on a tank of gas, that bodes very well for those circuits like Monza, for example, where they just need to run as far as they can. But we see in the pit lane, Ferrari mechanics are out, Jaguar mechanics are out. That must be for Johnny Herbert. Bertie's already been in. And so now, there we go, Barrichello now must stop.
And Jenson Button is up into 4th place as Johnny Herbert comes into the pits. Jenson Button is up from 18th at the start to 4th in the race on lap 47 out of 71. A brilliant drive. David Coulthard there second, being crowded by Rubens Barrichello, who is about to come in for his one and only stop in this year's Austrian Grand Prix. There are the Ferrari mechanics. James is there.
It's been very disappointing down here in the Ferrari garage. I think they've just been really struggling for grip. The car has been sliding through the corners, particularly the first 2 corners. Really a bad day. Rubens has been doing mid-112s, even in the run-up to his pit stop. And, well, not a good day for Ferrari, I'm afraid.
So out of the pit lane, Gently Motors. He has to, he can't go any faster than this. There is a speed limit for safety reasons. Gently Motors, Rubens Barrichello, who of course has now got a long gap between himself and David Coulthard, who motored serenely on as the Ferrari came into the pit lane. Barrichello accelerates away. He's Ferrari's sole hope in this race for 4 World Championship points compared with the 16 McLaren will get.
And look at Button. He's now done a 1:12.9, his fastest lap of the race by some margin. He's been told to sprint. Remember, he was tucked up behind Herbert and Salo. There was a few tenths between the 3 of them, and now his pit stop is imminent. I can see the mechanics out in the pit lane. Ralf Schumacher surely it will not be pitting again, so it must be for Jenson Button this time around. He's been told to push. He might, just might, leapfrog Salo and Herbert if he can have a good in-lap.
Now, unless I'm very much mistaken, Jenson Button has had a very encouraging discussion with Frank Williams here in Austria. It's not necessarily so encouraging that it'll mean he'll stay with Williams next year instead of Montoya, the Colombian, who's expected to take his place. But Frank Williams and Patrick Head are delighted with the Englishman. They've got him under long-term contract. There's no doubt that if Button is not with Williams next year, he will be with somebody else. And into the pit lane he comes from 4th position. Now, he's got Jacques Villeneuve at the present moment just a few seconds behind him. Villeneuve goes through and takes 4th position.
Villeneuve yet to stop, but here comes Button into his garage now. Just gently runs into the front jack. That's exactly what he should be doing. He's right on his mark, so the mechanics can easily manoeuvre around the car, moving the wheel. The fuel stop was short, of course, not so far to run to the end of the race. So a great stop for Button. That could just put him into a net 4th place, Murray.
Yeah, but there goes Wurz through. Now, Wurz was a lap adrift on Hakkinen, and I reckon that he's moved up into 5th position, and Jenson Button will therefore be down to 6th if I'm right.
Yes, but Wurz hasn't stopped yet, and nor has Jacques Villeneuve. But let's do a current 1 to 6 until it shakes out after all the pit stops. Mika Hakkinen leads David Coulthard by 17.1 seconds. A further 26 seconds down the road is Rubens Barrichello, and then it's Villeneuve, Jenson Button, who we've seen just pit stop, so the computer hasn't caught up with that yet, then Alexander Wurz. Salo and Herbert, who have stopped, are down in 7th and 8th at the moment. Another lap from now, we should be getting the true picture.
Well, if Hakkinen wins this race, he's still going to be 8 World Championship points behind Michael Schumacher as they go to the 11th race in Germany at Hockenheim in 2 weeks' time. No trouble for Jenson Button, but a problem of some kind. It looks in the region of the left rear wheel for the unfortunate Ralf Schumacher, who's had enough of them in this race, starting with being involved in the collision at the first corner on lap 1. He's been into the pits and had a new nose cone. When he came in, he was 8 laps adrift. He's just lost a lot more time. But meantime, Jenson Button, who is indeed in 6th position as a result of Wurz passing him, is very much in the points and will move back into 5th place when Wurz comes in for his pit stop. Positions at the moment: Hakkinen and Coulthard well clear of Barrichello. 25 seconds he is behind Coulthard. Jacques Villeneuve has just come into the pits. So Wurz might, just looking at the gap between them, it's going to be a very close run thing between Alex Wurz here and Villeneuve, who motors past me in the pit lane. And I think he's going to rejoin the track in front of Alexander Wurz. Yes, he is, because here comes the Austrian for his pit stop, which should allow Jenson Button back into 5th place for 2 potential World Championship points.
Yeah, Button's going to be 4th, Mario. Button has got out in front of Salo and Herbert. So that little trio, they were running 4th, 5th and 6th before the stops, as you see Wurz getting away in a very good 8.4 seconds. Jenson Button will be up to 4th place.
That will be 3 World Championship points. If he can stay there, it would be his highest finish in a Grand Prix. There goes the Williams, and Button was 5th in Britain, 6th in Brazil. He was in a potential World Championship scoring points in another race as well, but had to retire. And the green Jaguar that you see in the background of Johnny Herbert is now in 8th place. Lap 51 out of 71 at Austria's A1 ring. 13 of the 22 cars that started are still circulating, and Mazzacane in the Minardi is 2 laps behind race leader Mika Häkkinen as we ride with Rubens Barrichello, who is 25 seconds behind 2nd place David Coulthard. It is a McLaren whitewash. They're on a potential 16 Constructors' Championship points if they finish where they are now, and there is no doubt that McLaren will take the lead in the Constructors' Championship on race 10 out of 17.
Let me give you a 1 to 10. It's quite interesting. At the front, it's fairly predictable. It's Häkkinen now 18 seconds ahead of Coulthard, who's a further 25 seconds ahead of the man you're on board with now. And then Villeneuve had a great stop and managed somehow to get out in front of Jenson Button, who did leapfrog Salo and Herbert with those 2 or 3 great laps he did before his pit stop. So all changed there. Villeneuve, some kind of stunning in-lap and pit stop, has got him up into 4th place. Louise is with Lacey.
I am indeed. Jean, both Prost drivers out in the same accident. Tell us your side of the story.
So we were in 2 different strategies. Nick went out just in front of me with the full tank. I had the competitive car at this moment of the race, so I tried already once to overtake him. We touched each other already once. When I passed through the pits, I make a sign with my hands, and the lap after it, we had a definitive accident. So I want to understand exactly now with Alain why or if they say something to him before.
So you feel that the team should have told Heidfeld to let you past?
Of course, especially in this situation, everything is clear. I mean, they know the strategy very well, and I overtook a car at this place at the beginning of the race, so I knew it was possible to pass. But you need also to, I mean, okay, we had this accident. We have to speak now together to understand what's happened.
Thanks, Jean.
The problem is Heidfeld had no idea that he was coming up, so if there was any kind of instruction, it hadn't made it to Heidfeld's ears, because he simply turned in as per normal without an inkling that his teammate was slithering up the inside of him with a do-or-die effort. But I can understand Jean's point. If they were on different strategies, surely the team should have been playing a role in that one. But I'd like to cut back to the Villeneuve, Button, Salo and Herbert situation, because they're reasonably, as you see, what must be Salo, who's currently in 6th place, and Johnny Herbert there chasing him in the Jaguar.
Yeah, Salo actually lapping a bit quicker than Jenson Button at the moment, but he's some 4 seconds behind him. That at P6 is the sign to Mika Salo. There he is, and behind him in 7th place, the green Jaguar of Johnny Herbert. You remember he was in the points, he's just out of them at the present moment, but Jenson Button in the Williams BMW is very much still in them. Now Villeneuve, who got past him in the pit stop, is pulling away from the Williams BMW. I was going to say that Jacques Villeneuve would be an extraordinarily difficult bloke to get past, particularly by somebody who's as comparatively inexperienced as Button is, fine a season as he is having. Well, Villeneuve is pulling away. He's 2 seconds ahead of Button now. and he's lapping, of course, slower than Rubens Barrichello. Only 3 people, Häkkinen, Coulthard and Barrichello, are on the same lap, and Mika Häkkinen is lapping about 0.4 of a second slower than Rubens Barrichello at the moment.
Some kind of stellar drive from Villeneuve actually up there into 4th place. Remember in that melee in the first corner, he really did lose out quite badly. I can't remember, I think he was 14th or 15th when they took the safety car away. So he's made his way through the field. Others have had problems. And then a stellar pit stop. And Villeneuve in a very strong 4th place. And Button, we think, has gone off.
Yeah.
Button has run off onto the grass as he goes wide again. So Button's made a mistake in the last corner.
Yeah, and he's got Salo right behind him. There is Button in 5th position. Salo in the Sauber right behind him as they come up to turn 2, and that's where the Schumacher brothers had a gigantic battle respectively in the Ferrari and the Jordan a couple of years ago, and Johnny Herbert is right up behind Salo. So you're looking at the battle for 5th, led by Button, with Salo sandwiched between the 2 British drivers, Button and Herbert. Herbert in the Jaguar. And there's everything to gain for all of them. Button wants those 2 points, so does Salo, and especially Johnny Herbert, to give him the first points for Jaguar and the team's 2nd World Championship points this year.
Yes, Johnny Herbert in the worst possible place to finish a Grand Prix, and that's 7th, but he hasn't finished yet. And certainly Button, we think he ran, we're hoping to see a replay, he ran very, very wide in the last corner. The Williams pit are ready with a new nose, but I would imagine they'll only bring him in if he has a problem, which he doesn't appear to have at the moment. I would imagine that's a precautionary situation with regarding to the Williams pits. With so relatively few laps to go, it would be crazy to bring him in, and I can't see anything wrong with the nose. I think his team will be there ready just in case.
Well, disappointing for McLaren and their sponsors that we're not seeing more of Häkkinen and Coulthard, but it's a very wise decision by the television director, because this is the excitement. The McLarens are way out on their own, because there is the nose cone ready for Jenson Button's car, number 10. There is Jenson Button's car, number 10. Doesn't look to be suffering too much at the present moment from as far as I can see. And that is Jacques Villeneuve running wide, and that's what caused Button's problem, as he was tucked up right behind the BAR as they came round turn 8. That's about a 135-mile-an-hour corner. He just dodges the tyre wall and keeps on the track.
I can see why they're ready. There were bits and pieces falling off the nose, but it was mostly the wing end plates. I don't think it was anything critical or structural, but you do have to be careful, because if your front wing fails and tucks under your front tyres, you can have a pretty serious accident, as Salo once again moves within half a second of Jenson Button. But if that wing was going to fail big time, it would have happened by now. At the 180 miles an hour, yes, they're packing the kit away. 180 miles an hour, the download on that is several hundred kilos. So if it was going to break, it would have happened soon. Yeah,
this is only Button's 10th Grand Prix. He only had 1 season of Formula 3 behind him. He was 3rd in the British Championship last year and was 2nd at Macau. He won the Formula 4 championship the year before. So this is only his 3rd season of single-seaters and only his 10th race in Formula 1. And he's undoubtedly been the find of the season, and one of the best for a very long time. And that's endorsed by Frank Williams as Mika Häkkinen goes through to complete his 57th lap. 71 laps in the race. He's coming up behind Jacques Villeneuve, who is in 4th place. And there is David Coulthard in 2nd position, and Villeneuve, of course, has long since been lapped by Mika Häkkinen. Now he's lapped by David Coulthard. The gap between the 2 McLarens is just under 16 seconds.
Yes, the McLarens have now dropped about 1.5 seconds per lap to match the pace of Barrichello. They've got enough of a margin. They don't have to push. Häkkinen, having built himself a margin over Coulthard, is now paying attention to his pit board, telling him to ease it a little bit. He's now dropped back into the 13s and 14s, as has Coulthard, and that was Barrichello's pace anyway.
Yeah, Barrichello, as we watch Jacques Villeneuve in 4th position, he's been lapped Barrichello's having by far the best season he has ever had. Unlike Eddie Irvine in the last 4 seasons or so, he theoretically does not have to defer to Michael Schumacher, and partly as a result of that he's had 3 second places, he's been third a couple of times, he's been in the points in 2 fourth places, and he's only had a couple of retirements as Barrichello in Brazil and at the British Grand Prix, and as a result of all that he's in 4th position in the World Championship, and he's going to of course increase his points positioning here in Austria with another 4 World Championship points if he stays where he is. And we're looking at Mazzacane now in the Minardi with the red wishbones. He is in 13th place, and Alexander Wurz is behind him in the Benetton.
Well, Jenson Button sort of regrouped and started coming back. He lost 6 or 7 seconds when you saw him bouncing across the gravel to Villeneuve, who'd snatched the 4th place on the pit stops, but Button taking 1.5 seconds out of Villeneuve on the previous lap. I think Villeneuve was lapped at that time. I don't think he's got any specific problem. But Jenson now again establishing a 1 second lead as I'm talking about it, back to Salo, and Johnny Herbert is a further 1.2 seconds behind. A bit of debris lodged under the front wing end fences of that Williams, but Button is picking up his pace.
Bicasalo there in 6th position with another 12 laps to go. Johnny Herbert crowding him hard, but Jenson Button is lapping marginally faster than Salo and Herbert. He's ahead of both of them on the track, of course. He's in 5th, there is 5th, there is 6th, there is 7th, and that is Johnny Herbert. And between them, there are only 2.2 seconds as we switch to race leader Mika Häkkinen on his 60th out of 71 laps, watched by his wife there, Erja, and he's 15, very comfortable and comforting and reassuring and satisfying seconds ahead of David Coulthard in 2nd position. So, as I've said before, 16 World Championship points coming up for McLaren, and at the present moment, or when the race started, they were 6 World Championship points behind Ferrari, so they're going to have a lead of about 6 World Championship points, assuming Barrichello. Oh, that off goes Zonta. Zonta out of the race from 11th position, and that for the Brazilian is his 5th retirement this year.
Michael Schumacher.
Flames at the back.
Michael Schumacher will be cracking his knuckles. He'll have practiced what he's going to say. Zonta's going to be back to the pits 11 laps early, and I'm sure there's going to be quite an inquisition. It's a shame. It's good for the championship in a way. It's kept it extremely tight as we watch Zonta's Honda engine lunch itself big time on the way to turn 2. It's good for us in the championship that Michael hasn't scored points today, but I have to say, it's such a shame for this race, and overall for Michael, it just doesn't seem fair that a simple mistake by another driver can rob him of the chance of taking the fight to the McLaren.
I always feel so sorry for the engine manufacturers in a situation like this. The last thing Honda will want to see is repeated replays of their engine going bang. Ralf Schumacher, who is now 9 laps behind the leader, Mika Häkkinen, but keeping running on what is in effect an extended test for the Williams BMW team. And his teammate, Jenson Button, is in 5th position, and if he can stay there, it will enable Williams to leapfrog Benetton in the Constructors' Championship and regain the 3rd position that they lost to Benetton in the Canadian Grand Prix.
No idea why Mazzacani had to stop and go. Could be pit lane speeding. I don't think he's been anywhere near on the track to be able to... and this is a replay of Ralf Schumacher, who is running last and some 9 laps behind the leader, just out for an afternoon sport, having managed to spin off as well, just for good measure. And Zonta just about getting hit on the head.
Go easy
by the
hook.
And,
yeah, thank you.
Well, there you go. It's catching, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he's, I mean, that thing nearly hit him on the head, didn't it, with the shovel of the tractor.
So, Mika Häkkinen, here he is, lap 63, 71 lap race. Well, I say again, people were starting to write Häkkinen off, the very determined, phlegmatic, experienced Finn. Rubens Barrichello is cutting into, at the rate of about 0.4 of a second a lap, David Coulthard's lead, which is now some 26 seconds over him. But the McLarens are in effect touring. They're still going very quickly indeed, but not nearly as quickly as they could do if they had to. And you will have observed that although there are dark storm clouds overhead, the majority of the sky is blue, the track is dry, there have been no adverse weather problems for the drivers and us to contend with in the Styrian Hills here in Austria.
Ralf Schumacher's decided to finally call it a day and parked in the pit, but up at the front end, Coulthard keeps nibbling away at the lead of Häkkinen, and Häkkinen responds, but between them they're pegging Barrichello in 3rd place quite nicely. Villeneuve in 4th is a full 54 seconds behind 3rd place man Barrichello, and really then Button another 7 seconds down. Salo and Herbert still in reasonably close company.
Yeah, Button's continuing to drive a cracking race in his efforts to catch 4th place Jacques Villeneuve, because he's pulling away from Mika Salo, who is in 6th position, and are going to score points again for the Sauber team, having already done so twice this year. In fact, he's actually done so 3 times this year, but he was disqualified from the Australian Grand Prix because of a technical infringement, no fault of his. But Jenson Button is crowding on extremely well. He's been lapped. There's only 3 people on this, the 64th lap at the present moment, and they are, well, Häkkinen, Coulthard and Barrichello. And we've been looking at this bird in its nest for most of the weekend. The producer seems to have a fixation with it. As you can see, it's in the corner of the Ferrari garage.
Amazed that he managed to get a pass out of Bernie Ecclestone to get in there, but I guess the action on the track is not that exciting right now, so we're seeing the bird tucked up in the corner of the garage. But Häkkinen probably thinks it's quite exciting from where he's sitting, as he once again buries his foot onto the brake pedal and turns that McLaren, which really, they have been the class of the field this weekend, haven't they? Michael Schumacher was shaking his head. He just couldn't get that Ferrari on the pace, and just how near he was managing to make it for the near the pace for the race, we never got a chance to find out with that silly incident in the first corner. But Häkkinen certainly has been in the class of his own.
Well, he may have a cosy little nest in the corner of the Ferrari garage, but if I know Formula One as well as I think I do, there's going to be quite a substantial rental. Lap 65, Mika Häkkinen goes through to complete it, and into his 66th lap now. He's only got 5 laps to go in, I was going to say, what will have been a magnificent comeback. That's silly, really, because Mika Häkkinen has certainly never been away, nor has Louise Goodman. She's down there in the pit lane.
I am, and indeed with Ralf Schumacher. Ralf, one way or another, a pretty troublesome race for you today.
Yeah, I think it was a weekend to forget, or a day to forget. I mean, at the start, it was a bit bad luck. You know, I was on the wrong side, basically, and got stuck. Then we had a brake disc problem, so I had to come in. We had to change the brake disc. I mean, it was all a big mess this weekend. You
were 8 laps down. Why did you ever keep going in the first place?
It was just a decision taken by the team to keep on driving, see what we can do and what the car's like. That was the only reason.
Thanks, Ralf.
Oh, not a good day for the Schumacher brothers. by far the most successful set of brothers that have ever taken part in Formula One. There are 7 sets of brothers, the Fittipaldis, the Stewarts, the Rodriguez brothers. I can't remember all the others off the top of my head. But Schumacher, Michael and Schumacher, Ralph, have been quite outstanding as siblings in Formula One. And Mika Häkkinen is quite outstanding here. He's driven an absolutely immaculate race. I can find absolutely no destructive criticism of it at all. He started from pole position. He's led all the way except for when he came in for his sole pit stop when his teammate David Coulthard took over the lead, which Mika Häkkinen regained when Coulthard came in for his stop. And it looks as though it is going to be the 16th career win for Mika Häkkinen, and it's going to be the second only. It's only going to be the second win this year. He won 5 times last year, and that chap's been tottering about with that finish flag, to my certain knowledge, for 4 hours, because I was watching him do it this morning.
Now that you put the Murray Walker curse onto Mika Häkkinen, Coulthard is eating into his lead. It's now down to 11.1 seconds, but without doubt, Häkkinen is now enjoying the fruits of his afternoon. Earlier in the race, when he eked out that advantage with speed and with good use of the traffic, and Barrichello making his way through the back markers. I think Mazzacani, who's just being lapped again, actually got his stop-and-go penalty for not moving out of the way. We see him on the computer having had blue flags waved at him, so he was penalised, soon got out of the way that time, as Coulthard does a new fastest lap of the race by a long, long way. It just shows you the kind of pace those McLarens could have had this afternoon. He's done a 1:11.7, so Coulthard deciding he's going to have a bit of fun at the end. As long as he doesn't fall off, he'll be okay. And he's now just 9 seconds behind Häkkinen.
And that is an average speed around this 2.7-mile circuit of well over 134 miles an hour. Not just a maximum speed somewhere, an average speed round the whole circuit. And he's been doing speeds of up to 190 miles an hour at turn 1 and down to 45 miles an hour on turn 2. This circuit is in effect a series of straights with 2 or 3 very, very tight and slow corners. It's a killer on brakes.
I'd imagine the McLaren pits will be on the radio saying, "Have a word with yourself, David. What are you doing so close to the end of the Grand Prix?" Häkkinen, you know, if you get there, you've got to pass him. Häkkinen can surely pick his pace back up again, but David obviously comfortable that he's can handle that kind of pace without falling off the road. He's got 27.5 seconds, look, back to Barrichello, and now he's stopped it. He's a 1:14.4. I think that was David just demonstrating, hey, look, this is what I could do if I really had total freedom this afternoon.
There's Mark, who is Mika's bald-headed, like me, Finnish-speaking physio, standing as ever with Eija, who is Mika's wife, while they watch their man's progress around this circuit, this magnificent, victorious progress. James, you've got something to add?
Yeah, Coulthard got a board there from the team saying easy. I just wonder whether in the early part of this race, you know, when they were hanging the boards out to both drivers saying easy, shift, revs, etc., and Häkkinen was ignoring that, just going faster and faster. I wonder if he was just trying to put pressure on Ron Dennis to say, look, we need team orders here. Tell DC he's not going to attack me, he's not going to race here. I just wonder whether that's gone on over the radio during the race. I just wonder whether that lap of DC's wasn't just a little bit of frustration. What do you think, Martin?
Well, David's certainly short-shifting plenty early enough at the moment as we move into these last few races. I think they were reasonably clear what they had to do as a team. As I said at the beginning, they had a fairly major problem. They needed to handle Ferrari as team players, yet they're both up for the World Championship. And as I expected, when David put the 11.7 in, the team immediately going to tell him just to sort himself out and not bother at this stage of the afternoon. I don't think that there was anything between them to say, hey, he's going to win the race and you're not, or anything like that. I think it's just this afternoon, Häkkinen has had more pace.
Yeah, well, if there is pressure between them, there's going to be even more in Germany, because David Coulthard is still, if my mental arithmetic is right, going to be 2 World Championship points ahead of Mika Häkkinen, still in second place in the World Championship at the end of this race.
This is a great drive from Villeneuve you're looking at now in 4th place. He's got a tricky decision. Does he go now to Renault called Benetton at the moment, who they should be getting it together. Renault have done so well before in Formula 1, both with turbo and with normally aspirated engines. Or does he stay with BAR and trying to take some of the advantages out of all the hard work he's put in there? And oh, that was close, wasn't it? So I think Villeneuve really is in a tricky situation, because the last 3 or 4 races, that BAR has appeared to almost be the best of the rest after Ferrari and McLaren.
That's Wurz trying to stay ahead of Pedro Diniz and retain his 9th position, as Mika Häkkinen is now on his 71st and last lap, victoriously driving on at the A1 ring in Austria. David Coulthard, there is Häkkinen. David Coulthard is 12 seconds behind him. Rubens Barrichello is catching both of them, but it's academic. He's in 3rd place, 30 seconds over behind Häkkinen. Villeneuve, that magnificent 4th. Button is going to be in the points because he won't have to do the 71 laps on account of the fact he's been lapped. And Mika Salo is going to score a point, and Johnny Herbert is just going to miss it in 7th position. So in the closing stages of the Austrian Grand Prix, up to turn 7 comes Mika Häkkinen at about 130 miles an hour, down to turn 8, and in Austria, Mika Häkkinen crosses the line to win his 16th Grand Prix, and we look back now for David Coulthard, who is going to be about 12 seconds behind his teammate. There he is, a magnificent Austrian Grand Prix for McLaren. 16 Constructors' World Championship points. They move ahead of Ferrari, and my goodness, it is mighty close now in the Drivers' Championship, because Michael Schumacher is on 56 points. Mika Häkkinen is on 48 points, and David Coulthard is on 50 points. So it's going to be a terrific climax to the season, starting with the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim in 2 weeks' time. But to say again, the best possible situation, and that's for the 4th time this year for McLaren, because they achieved a 1st and 2nd at the British Grand Prix and at the Spanish Grand Prix 2 weeks ago in France, here today in Austria. 16 points times 4 from those 4 races alone. Barrichello just about saved Ferrari's bacon, but it was not a very convincing demonstration, one has to say, because he was 30 seconds behind Mika Häkkinen. And Villeneuve, who was 4th, was lapped. Button, for the 3rd time this year, scores World Championship points by finishing 5th after having started 18th. A terrific drive. And Mika Salo, who started ahead of Jenson Button, finishes behind him, 6th position, 1 World Championship point. 7th, Johnny Herbert. 8th, good finish for Marc Genet and Minardi. 9th, Pedro Diniz, so both the Saubers were in the top 10. Alex Wurz, the sole Benetton, in 10th position. Luciano Berti finishes, only lapped twice in his 1st Grand Prix, and that was for Jaguar. Both the Jaguars therefore finish, and that is an excellent achievement after the problems they've been having. Last one to finish, 3 laps down, Gaston Mazzacane from Argentina in 12th position. And James?
Well, I tell you, Murray, Ron is very happy. You've got your world champions, got his magic back. A tremendous day for the McLaren team.
Yes, good, very good, very happy. Great for the team, everybody back home, and I think it's, both drivers just did a great job.
You had to hang a few boards out to them to tell them to slow down at several stages. Did you at any stage you tell them to hold station, or were they racing each other all the way?
No, they once Mika had enough lead over David to manage anything that could happen in the pit stop, we slowed them both down. But they drove very well together, and it was hard for us to see them race so hard at the beginning. But once it was optimum gaps, then there was no sense to race each other, and very pleased for them both.
Big party in Woking tonight. Well done, Ron.
Thank you.
No change in the top 6 in the Drivers' Championship, but now just 8 points covers the first 3. Michael Schumacher 6 points ahead of David Coulthard, who is still 2nd, but Mika Häkkinen in 3rd position, 48 points, 6 behind Michael Schumacher, 2 behind David Coulthard. It's going to be a terrific finish to this World Championship Series. And we've still got the German, Hungarian, Belgium, Italian, the American Grand Prix at Indianapolis for the first time on September the 24th, and then off to the Far East for Japan on October the 22nd, and Malaysia, which is finishing the season, the 17th race on October the 22nd. And I confirm that McLaren are now leading Ferrari by 6 World Championship points in the Constructors' Championship, having taken second place to them all the way up to now. And Williams have passed Benetton to third.
Surely Schumacher can't lose this World Championship again this year. He was running away, wasn't he, so easily at the beginning of the year. McLaren seemed to have no reliability. Coulthard lost his points in Brazil. It just seemed so easy for Michael. Now he's got 2 McLaren drivers ganging up on him. They're just 2 points apart and 6 and 8 points behind him. So Michael really has got his hands full. But worse than that, Murray, the McLaren at the moment is a faster race car. In qualifying, I don't think there's much in it. Overall, at the various circuits, but in the race, the McLaren's faster.
Yes, we have to remember that Michael Schumacher is a superlatively good driver, and he can normally make up for something. The Ferrari is undoubtedly closer to the McLaren than it was last year. I mean, here last year, the 2 McLarens were a full second faster than Ferrari in qualifying, and that was a long way from the case today. But as you rightly say, the McLaren-Mercedes combination is better than the Ferrari chassis and Ferrari engine combination. And it's going to take an awful lot of work by Ferrari to get closer, because once the season has started, it is so difficult with testing and 2 weeks gap between each race and having to go to the next race to develop faster than the team ahead of you.
What was significant is when McLaren went to Ferrari's test track in Mugello last week, Panis, the test driver, was quicker both days than Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari, where he uses the car quite a lot. So Ferrari will have to regroup. They'll have to come back with something stronger. They've got Ross Brawn and Rory Byrne and a host of brilliant engineers at the Ferrari factory. Surely they can come up with something. They need to now, otherwise I can't see them being able to defend. I can't see Michael being able to defend the onslaught of Hakkinen and Coulthard.
No, neither can I. Talking about Olivier Panis, incidentally, who's done such a superb job as test driver for McLaren this year, I would not be at all surprised to see him back in Formula One as a competitor next year, perhaps for the Arrows team. That's my tip for the future. Let's see whether it works out. That's a very happy Hakkinen. And I mean, the story that because of her pregnancy, Mika Hakkinen was losing motivation has proved to be so much nonsense. Big crowd here in Austria. They've seen an excellent race. It was a pity, frankly, that the potential battle between Schumacher, once he got past Barrichello, as he would have done, was beaten. But so you can see how happy Mika is, rejuvenated. You don't see him as ebullient as that. That's a sort of Schumacher stance. Lots of very happy Finns here, the Finnish national anthem for Mika, and there's a lot of British people here who will be equally happy to hear the British national anthem for McLaren. I see Dave Ryan, who is the team manager for McLaren. He's very rightly going to receive the Constructors' Trophy, but Mika Häkkinen gets the Driver's Award from Dr. Wolfgang Schüssel, who is the Federal Chancellor of the Republic of Austria. Dave Ryan now gets the winning Constructors' Trophy from Dr. Boris Nemchik, who's the director of Mobil here in Austria, who have sponsored the race. And now Mika Häkkinen, having got his trophy, sees David Coulthard. Second place, Dr. Suzanne Ries-Passer, the Vice Federal Chancellor of Austria. And finally, the fourth trophy goes to the third place, Rubens Barrichello from Mrs. Waltraud Klasnik. Three very happy men after what has been a very significant Austrian Grand Prix, which has seen McLaren take the lead in the Constructors' Championship and the three drivers at the top separated by a mere 8 points.
Bundeskanzler Dr. Wolfgang Schüssel, der Vizekanzlerin Dr. Susanne Ries-Passer